Hey everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. This is part 2 of the PCOS series that I'm going to do. You'll see them randomly pop up as we get the chats going on the playlist. So today I have the lovely Bev Moore with me, and she is somebody who I met whilst I was doing my stint as a doorman for my sins. I'm sure I was being punished for something doing that job because it was a ride. And I saw Bev in one of the pubs I was working in. She recognized me from the gym. We started talking, and we've always sort of kept in contact since. And then, unfortunately, there was an incident with some charming individuals that tried to take Bev's handbag while she was riding a bike. They chased her through town, and she basically snapped her ankle. So I was doing rehab with her before lockdown started. That kind of put the kibosh and everything, but I've checked in. We've kept in touch with each other since. So with the PCOS topic being something that I want to shed some light on, with various people coming in to talk about it and their experiences, Bev was kind enough to say that she'd talk about it. So today we're going to go through how it's affected Bev, what she knows about it, her individual journey with it. And this is the main thing we're trying to work with, because as I've stated before in previous podcasts, the one with Nicola, who will be coming back to do more of a fertility side of things with it, this is a very individual journey for everybody. It's not the same for every woman. It's the information you're told is different because it's constantly evolving. How it affects you is very different, etc., etc. So the more people's experiences we can get in one place, hopefully it resonates with you somewhere, so you can find some solace that either A, somebody feels the same way as you do, or B, you may learn something you didn't know. So I will hand over to the lovely Bev, and she can tell us a little bit about herself. So the floor is yours, Bev. Talk away.
Wow. Okay. So I've recently joined the Naughty 40 Club. Um,
Rocking it.
yeah, totally. I've noticed lots of changes about my body over the last 5, 6 years. Weight seems to be a huge problem that I just never seem to be able to get on top of. Many years ago, back in my probably late 20s, I was unfortunately diagnosed with early stage cervical cancer, which involved having the vast majority of my cervix removed. And yeah, that was not a great time. Obviously, in my late 20s, I hadn't planned on having any more children anyway, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. And then I was warned that, there could be other problems, that I could face menopause early, that, I would have other lady bits, that weren't quite as what they should be. So I got on with it, hit 30, thought life was great, was still reasonably able to maintain my weight, varying, between a 10 and a 12. We're not all one shape and one size. So,
No.
I used to have a size 10 waist with a size 12 behind and hips. And now I'm a little bit bigger than that. I'm around about 14, but I've definitely noticed that, the last 5 years or so, no matter what I do, I just seem to struggle.
Right.
In amongst that, I also was having really bad problems with my monthly cycle. I've been prodded, probed, tested, swabbed, checked internally, scanned several times, and I was diagnosed with both polycystic ovary syndrome and endometriosis.
Wow, both of them. So you got
Yeah.
both jab and cross from that one, didn't you?
I got a double whammy. Yeah, it was great. Not obviously, which meant for me, my periods over the last 5 years have been horrendous. I could be on 1 week, off the next, back on again the week after. They could last anything from 4 days to 14 days, over which time my body would crave food like an addiction, like almost there was no cut off point in my brain to tell me when I'd had enough. I would just at some point feel sick.
Right.
Um, I do think I may have some thyroid problems as well, but that's currently ongoing. I'm having what the doctor is referring to me as well woman checks at the moment.
Right.
And yes, I'm hit with the early stages of menopause, which again isn't helping. It's mentally draining, it's emotionally draining, it's physically draining as well, which means for some women their cycles lessen and lighten, and for some of us it gets worse and more frequent, and I fall into the latter category. I found that the tiredness and fatigue it's off the scale. Some days, I rely on Lucozade just to be able to function first thing in the morning. And I wasn't really told much about menopause. Apparently it was just, a phase you go through when your periods start to stop, and, every woman goes through it. And back in the early 90s, I think the whole lady area was definitely a taboo subject. I think in education it still is, to be fair.
Yeah, it was funny, wasn't it, how there was a stage where it was all very liberating. You look at like the pretty much from the 60s to the 80s, it was all about liberation. It was obviously, we had the very real issue with AIDS and stuff. Obviously they did that It's a Sin, which was a great documentary sort of biopic about it. But then and as soon as the 90s came, it's sort of don't talk about that anymore. Just no, that's everyone became very prudish all of a sudden again. Almost like we reverted back, as if being educated in sexual expression, and especially in the nicest possible way, without sending up a shitstorm, men's bodies are quite easy to figure out. There's not much that can go wrong. Yes, when it does go wrong, it kind of does get very serious very quickly, but it's a very clear time when that happens. Whereas with female bodies, again, having grown up with a mum who's all of that down there, doctors literally turned around and said to her once, like, I hope you weren't thinking of having children, because there's absolutely no chance that anything could work in there. And she said, well, I've had 2 boys. And they were like, well, bloody congratulations, because there is absolutely no chance that should have happened. And her cycles very much like yours were 3 weeks at a time, and then a week off and another 3 weeks, but it was very volatile, etc., etc. But it's just so varied. And it seems like maybe that's why not much information is known. I don't know. That might be oversimplifying everything, but it just, as you say, it's almost like the menopause is like this badge of honor, isn't it? That the older ladies say, oh, you wait till the menopause, as if it's like, well, it was going to happen anyway, so you'll just have to ride it out like the rest of us. Yet it's very wild, and I suppose, again, stipulating being the man in the room, I'm sure it can be quite scary at times, thinking like, what the hell is happening and what comes next?
I think definitely so. I mean, your emotions can be absolutely on a roller coaster. I can be happy as Larry baking cakes 1 minute, and then the next minute it's like a scene from some sort of like scary movie where I'm screaming and wanting to smash things up and absolutely losing my rag over something really trivial. Like I completely lost my head over Marmite one day. There was no Marmite and I wanted Marmite on toast. And at that particular point in time, I near enough tore down the house over Marmite. And then you feel the guilt because you realize you've just taken it out on your loved ones and that you're unreasonable. And then inevitably you end up crying your eyes out. And then you end up feeling weak and pathetic for crying over something so trivial. And then, maybe 5 minutes later, you're, happy baking cakes again. And it's, you can't level it out and you can't justify it because the hormones can be so different. So I think for menopause, for some women, their bodies start to overproduce the female hormones like estrogen. And for some unlucky people, their male hormones tend to, produce a bit more. So, the testosterone comes in. And I think as a woman, we strive to be the best person that we can be. We have our hair done, it might just be cut, or it might be colored, or it might be styled, or we put makeup on, or we do our brows, or there's always some sort of self-care. But the minute your body starts to change, you realize that you're actually trying to do so much more, because menopause is almost like, it's like the end of your youth and your vitality, and you're desperately clinging on to something that you don't know how long it's going to last. So
it's interesting you say that. It's almost, you go from accentuation to preservation. And like as you say, we all do it. I mean, I'm past caring now. The grays that are flocking into my hair and beard are just whatever. But as you say, you go for all that time trying to accentuate everything, don't you? You get your hair done, you get your lashes done, your brows are done, your lips, you get your lipstick and you put your makeup on. And it's because you want to show off what you've got. And then, as you say, you hit that moment where you actually go, Jesus Christ, I'm just trying to show people I'm still what I am, even though your body's fighting you in that sense. And and I mean, that's funny from a different point of view anyway, because it should, in every other animal species, it's always the men that have to show off and compete because you ladies get to choose who you go with. Yet we're the only ones that seem to, the women get as involved as the men, as it were, to try and show off what we've got. But yeah, I can see from a psychological point of view, I suppose, how you haven't technically changed what you're doing. You'll still get your hair done, you'll still get your eyebrows done, your lashes done, but that it's the meaning behind it, isn't it? You've gone from trying to show everybody your womanly values, as it were, for lack of a better word, to all of a sudden desperately trying to cling on to your womanly values because you feel that they're slipping away.
And it can be so many changes. Like one day, you know, your skin can almost be like teenager like, and your sebaceous glands are overactive, and you know, you're developing huge spots and boils, which I'm currently sporting. They need their own passport right now.
This is why luckily I have a beard to hide all that. I was blessed with a very thick chin
strong
line.
Beard. I tell you, if it wasn't for the tweezers, I probably wouldn't be far behind you. You know, every day you catch yourself in the light, and you know, they're just these hairs, and they're just like, hello. And you know, I think for women, you know, certainly women that are aware of their bodies and their changes, when we go through gynecological issues, you know, whether it's anything, we tend to have it on the lower half of our face, so kind of like from the nose and round the chin. So this whole area becomes a problem area. That's where you'll get your spots. It's where you'll start to grow thicker, darker hairs. It's what's over oily, or sometimes it's really dry. And you know, I mean, you can have the best skincare in the world, but your body will ultimately change as often as the wind whilst you're going through the change. And it's hard to handle as a woman, if I'm honest, because you know, I want to be young, I want to be seen as being young, and I'm not. And hitting menopause and having the polycystic ovaries, the endometriosis, means that sometimes, you know, I can be absolutely fine. I can be walking down the street, and then boom, one of these cramps will hit me, and I will literally want to fold over in half. My eyes will become watery, and you know, I've just got to take 10 minutes out. But then sometimes, as quick as it comes, it can go again. And I think people don't understand what that's like if they've not been through it. They just think, oh, she's having a period, or oh, it's just a woman, get over it. You've been having it for, you know, 25 years or whatever. But the journey is so different for so many people. When you have those challenges, it's because there isn't any real guidance, there's no real education, and because there's no textbook process, because we are all so different, it makes it very hard to relate. And I think for some women, they're embarrassed, they don't want to talk to people. And certainly for me, you know, as I said, I'm 40. The women that I would look up to, so like my aunts and things, who are obviously of a different generation, they're not always so keen to talk about it, or if they do, their experiences can be so different to what you are. So then you think, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? And again, it just brings all that self-doubt, and then you go back to, you know, trying to again reverse signs of aging, and you know, again go into self-preservation mode, and it's just a constant yo-yo and battle.
And it's funny, like my grandmother, prime example of sort of what you're saying. My mum, due to the fact that we couldn't escape it, I suppose we can talk quite openly about it. I mean, me and my brother's wife has polycystic ovary syndrome and endometriosis and fibromyalgia and about 7 other things that come off a pharmacy list of things that she's got going on with her. So me and my brother talk about it. You know, we were very I don't want to say the word lucky in the wrong context, but due to my mother's condition, me and my brother are very well versed in how complex and how volatile and how aggressively this can come on, and the mood changes it can bring, etc. Whereas a lot of men and women, I guess, have no idea. But then you talk to my grandmother, who essentially just sees, I mean, we laugh at it. My mum is difficult to my grandma, you know, it is what it is. But there is that generation. It was just, well, you should just deal with it,
Yeah.
you know, or as you because they had to just deal with it because their parents didn't talk about it, and you have that line of lineage that goes back where people just didn't talk about it. You are essentially just told to suck it up.
Yeah.
Maybe not in those words, but it is very much well, we all went through it. That is, you know, so with the whole, well, we lived through a war, doesn't mean it was a great time. It's not like, you know, it wasn't the grand old days, you know, when death was knocking at your door. With the same thing with these issues. And as you say, if nobody else has had quite the ride you've had in your circle of people that you would confide into, as you said quite rightly, it's got to be very isolating all of a sudden to go to somebody who is the only people really you're close enough to talk to about it, that have gone through it, and then go, well, you know, we all went through it. It's just one of those things. And you go, it feels a little bit different than one of those things. It's a little bit more acute than that, I suppose. But as you say, when you get just sort of told, well, we dealt with it, or, well, we don't really talk about that, what do I do now?
Yeah. I think similarly to you, my nan was very much the same. When, you know, we spoke about these things when she was with us, she explained that, you know, her period stopped dead when she was 42. She had no mood changes, no, you know, infrequent bleeding or irregular bleeding. It was literally like gone just as quick as it arrived. And then my mum has had various health issues as well, which have obviously contributed to hers, but her situation has been the polar opposite of my nan. And
Right.
I think what we have to look at as well is, in the day and age that we're in at the moment in 2020, our lifestyles and our environments are so much more different. So you have to wonder whether or not that has a direct result on it. So much more food that we have now is imported. It's mass produced. It's, you know, you've got chickens that are being injected with steroids and water to make them bigger. You've got, you know, pesticides on food, whereas, you know, back in our grandma's days, you know, they probably had allotments and grew their own veg, so they probably didn't have the processed food that is what we have available today. And not everyone can afford to eat organically and to eat fresh, and for some families it's a financial thing, so they can't afford it. But you have to wonder whether or not all of these different lifestyle changes over the last 50, 60 years are having a direct impact on our bodies now, because the way we are growing up is very different to how they grew up.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, rationing was a big thing. You couldn't overeat. It was very hard to overeat. And, you know, countless studies come back saying, you know, we were at our healthiest during the war because everybody ate the exact amount. I mean, nobody was flourishing. I'll make that very clear. Nobody was thriving, but nobody was malnourished per se, because everybody had enough for each person to survive for a week. You weren't going to grow massive muscles, but you weren't going to waste away. Again, through selective, maybe even, as you say, not the pesticides and stuff, but the funniest one is when you talk to your grandparents and gluten intolerance wasn't a thing. They don't believe in gluten intolerance. And it's like, well, the corn and the wheat not the corn, yeah, but the wheat you were eating then 50, 60 years ago is not the wheat that is on production now, because we've had to make it drought proof and flood proof, and for all these selective breeding processes with XYZ and all the food we're eating, because it has to survive the new climate we're in, which naturally progresses anyway regardless. You aren't eating the same stuff. You're quite right. And because there is no limit anymore on what can and can't be eaten, because we are fortunate enough to live where we are, and food scarcity technically is not a problem. Yes, there are kids and people going hungry, and that is more complex than just the fact there's no food, because there is food. There's food everywhere. In fact, like there is just quite literally food falling out of the bins half the time. There's that much of it. But as you say, unless you could go back and really check what was going on back then to compare to now. And it might even not be, say, our generation itself. It could be the interim in between has passed on these genetic quote unquote defects or these conditions, and we're just bearing the brunt of it now because, you know, it's usually one of those things that drops down. So when you found out you had PCOS and endometriosis, was that before or after the cervical cancer thing you had to have done?
That was after. So
Okay.
after they removed my cervix, obviously they discussed fertility issues, and they said things like it wouldn't be impossible to get pregnant, but it would be more difficult. They did say that if I did become pregnant, that because there was no cervix and there wasn't enough to, without being too graphic, heel over and hold the baby in.
Yeah, right.
That
Yeah.
if I did go ahead with a pregnancy, I would have to have a surgical procedure in order to close the lining of my womb at the top and close up the cervix to obviously prevent things from coming out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Basically the
Which
chamber that
again
the
would,
baby was supposed to go in wasn't there anymore. So
yeah.
they'd have to
So
artificially make one.
yeah, so that obviously would then involve a risk of miscarriage, a risk of infection, a risk of it not working. So, you know, I obviously didn't have any more children. I've got one. She's nearly 20 now. And yeah, I'm surprised she's still alive with my hormones the way they are. You know, I could have definitely Jimmy Corkilled her under the patio a few times. But, you know, she's still going somehow.
She is still going. Yes, I can vouch, ladies and gentlemen. She is, in fact, still, I saw her the other day. She's alive and well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the Hardwick can attest to that as well, because she was there last night.
Indeed.
On a Monday, but oh, to be young. But so, yeah, I never explored the idea of expanding my family. And I think as well, psychologically, I felt like I couldn't maybe find a partner in case they wanted children, because I didn't want to risk myself or the heart wrench of losing a child and going
Right.
through miscarriage. So yeah, I kind of avoided relationships. I tried to, you know, I can do this on my own. I'm a single independent woman, you know, but I do think I missed opportunities as well. So I think that, you know, there were probably men that would or would not have, you know, wanted a family, but I didn't really give any of them that option or that choice, because I just kind of felt that, you know, it was something I had to deal with. If they wanted kids, they had to go do them, and, you know, if they came back, they came back. If they didn't, they didn't.
Right.
But then after the cervix was removed, up until present day, I still have to have smears every 6 months, which it's not the nicest of procedures, but it's not uncomfortable. So ladies, do not fear the smear. Go in, get
Yes,
tested,
exactly. It's
and
I
get
am
done.
very much on that with my female clients. As say, anybody who's listened to this podcast now knows that my client base is predominantly women, and yeah, I have had conversations before where a lady, female client of mine, was reluctant to go and get the smear test done after she'd had the pink letter saying you need to get down here and get it done, because
Yeah.
she didn't want to inconvenience her other half by leaving the kids at home while he was working from home during lockdown. I went, well, what's the other option? You die? I was like, no, get your backside down there. He can suck it up and deal with it for a couple of hours. Like,
It is a
I think
5-minute
we're all right.
procedure.
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
I'm on it with my other half. You know, and as I've said with guys, it's like, look, I'm going to hit an age very quickly where I'm going to have to go and make sure that everything down there's working for me, because you know, the prostate cancer and everything else. I said, like, it's just the thing. Yes, there is an unpleasantness to it, obviously, but as you say, it's either that or something worse happens. So, but I mean, the frequency you have to
Absolutely.
have it done. If anybody could be a spokesperson for how it's not as bad as it's made out to be, you've got to be it, because they say you have to have one every 6 months. You're very
Oh
much.
yeah, I've had more than I care to remember, the amount of doctors and nurses and gynecologists that have, you know, seen my lady parts. You know, I've definitely couldn't even name them all. I couldn't even put a figure on it. And I think as well, because I was younger, quite a lot of trainee medical students, trainee gynecologists, you know, they've all been party to the journey that I've been on. And it's not pleasant, but it's not unbearable. It takes not even 5 minutes. Your smear can be over and done with probably in about 90 seconds. And if you think about it, you probably spend longer than that having a shower, drying your hair, putting your makeup on, arguing with your kids. So it's just something that we need to do.
Yeah.
But as I said, following that, I still felt that things weren't right. My menstrual cycle was becoming far more frequent. I had a couple of smears that came back with inconclusive results. So again, I had to keep going backwards and forwards, but there was definitely an issue down there.
Right.
And the pain that I felt. And then I used to convince myself that I was having tumors, because inevitably, like we women do, we're suspicious. As women, we are naturally suspicious about everything, and we're inquisitive. So, you know, you can poke through your tummy, you can prod your tummy, and you can feel what's going on. And a bit like when you do a breast check and you check for breast lumps, you can actually push down, you know, in your lower groin area, around your hips, and you can feel for any sort of irregularities or anything that isn't what would normally be like normal. And for me, I felt like I could feel golf balls inside me, you know, to the sides where my ovaries would be. So I went down to the doctors. They did several tests. I had an ultrasound scan. Generally, you have two types of ultrasound scan. You have one on your tummy, like you would do if you were pregnant.
Yep.
And then you also have a probe scan, which is kind of what it says on the tin. It's an internal scan, but again, it's not that uncomfortable. It's different, but it's not, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's going to make your life easier. If it needs to be done, get on and do it. And it was there that they said that my ovaries had developed an abnormal amount of cysts, and along with my temperatures, my sweats, my cramps, my groin pains, my regular periods, my hormones, my estrogen levels, they concluded that I had polycystic ovaries and endometriosis. The first doctor I saw happened to be a male GP, so I'm not sure I saw the right person at first, but his answer was, take painkillers. You can buy them over the counter. Take some paracetamol, drink plenty of water, and the pain will subside. And I kind of got out of there thinking, is that it? Is that all you've got to tell me?
It's almost like when you offer your child Calpol when they've got a bellyache, isn't it? And you just go, I mean, really?
Yeah, well, after several attempts with just self-medicating with painkillers, you try with obviously the bog standard paracetamol, you try with the ibuprofen, you try with anything you can, you know, you try massaging your tummy with coconut oil, you try warm baths, you try heat patches, you try hot water bottles, anything just to make it a bit more bearable to get through the day. So now I'm currently going through different types of hormone treatment. So the next stage for me is that they want to try and regulate or you know, at least try and bring to a halt just everything that's going on. So as well as having a coil fitted internally, which is a hormone release coil, they've now decided to put me on the pill as well. So in addition to being a mum and having a job and everything else, I now have to remember to take a tablet every single day, which is just another thing to add to my chores. And if I'm honest, I don't always remember.
No.
It's, you know, it's not something I've had to consider or to do, but if that doesn't work, then they will look at the possibility of HRT, which for anyone that isn't familiar with that, or for the blokes, it's called hormone replacement therapy. and that will be a way of trying to stabilize my hormones. If that doesn't work, then I potentially could be facing another surgical procedure, and I could be looking at having a partial or a full hysterectomy, but that's undecided as yet. And we've got to battle it out with these lovely little pills for the next 12 weeks.
Lovely, lovely. So with so for mainly men, I suppose, listening, and maybe some women, you know, not going to plug it. So polycystic ovary syndrome and endometriosis are in fact two very different things. You can have one or the other. In your case, you have both.
Yeah.
Was there a differentiation explained to you about the two, or was it just, look, you've got them both, deal with it, off you go? Or did you then have to go and find out yourself or ask around to find out more information on it?
Yeah, very much the internet was my guide. Yes, there are brilliant things that you can read on the internet, and there are not so brilliant things to read. So I think if you are going to look at something like that, then definitely you need to look at the actual government websites, the NHS websites. You know, going on various social media platforms and forums is all well and good, because people speak about their experiences and what works for them. But what you have to remember is that's not going to work for everyone.
No, it's very anecdotal, isn't it? You got to, you know, it's good to see that other people, what they've come across, to maybe see if your symptoms set up. But as you say, yeah, err on the side of caution. When it comes to medication, any kind of remedies, you do kind of have to go with doctors. Well, you have to go with doctors, because at least, you know, it's tried and tested. Homeopathic remedies, if you've come across one that works, is fine. But yeah, if just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
No. And I think the important thing to remember is, you know what's normal for your body, and you know how your body feels. So when the endometriosis is playing up, it's very much like a centralized kind of pulling, tugging pain. Whereas with the polycystic ovaries, you know, sometimes they can get big, sometimes, you know, they can just be sat there and do nothing, but that is more to the side. So when you imagine the lady parts, you know, those pains are closer towards your hips and on the insides and down your legs as well, because obviously your muscles are all related. And when you get spasms and they contract, it can go anywhere from, you know, down to your knees to up to your boobs. So again, that is different for everyone. But I think it's always important that if you are unsure, absolutely get a second opinion. You can ask to speak to a specialist nurse. You can ask to see a gynecologist. You can ask for a referral. If you know that what you're experiencing isn't normal for you and you're not happy with what you've been told, then go and get that second referral.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as you said there, it's really important to don't be afraid to ask until you understand.
Yeah.
Because you may not even understand it on the second one. It's down to the communication skills of the person you're speaking to. You know, it's from any kind of training or consulting or coaching point of view, doctor, whatever. The person can only interpret the language that you're speaking. So if your doctor's talking to you in a language that you don't understand, I don't mean English, Polish, Japanese, whatever. I mean, if the words they're saying aren't resonating with you and you can't take it in, you either have to ask them to explain it in a different way or go find some other versions of that explanation, because one of them will kick through, one of them will help you understand. But don't be afraid to ask as many times as possible until you get it. Because if somebody says, well, you're not listening to me, it's like, no, it's not, I'm not listening to you. I'm just not understanding what you're saying. You need to explain it to me differently, because these words don't mean anything to me. I mean, it's no different than when I've been training you in the gym and I say something, you look at me like a plane's just flown over the top of your head. I'm like, okay, that didn't resonate. Let's give you a different explanation. You go, yes, that now makes sense. That's exactly how I was going to move. And you go, okay, great. But I know from a lot of people, I myself am very lucky. I'm quite outgoing. I'll just ask, and I don't know, sorry, I didn't understand that. But for a lot of people, I know that they'll be shy enough about asking in the first place. They'll get an explanation they don't really understand, and they'll just walk away feeling more confused. You know, as Bev and myself have just said, if you're listening to this, keep asking until you understand it, because it's not your fault. If you don't understand, it means that the people you've been talking to haven't clearly explained it in a language that you understand best. So keep going, or ask them, say, that, can you reword that for me? Because those words, I don't understand what that means.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's about recognizing those changes that you feel within your body. So certainly I've noticed that my hair seems to be thinner and finer.
Hmm.
I said about my skin, you know, 1 minute it's drier than the Sahara Desert, and the next minute you could fry an egg on it. Again, it's the emotions, but it's silly little things. And, you know, that the pains and the cramps sometimes can mask it. And if you've got any other underlying health issues for any other medical reasons and you're taking medication for them, just beware that it can mask. And, you know, you may not notice symptoms or changes because, you know, it's being masked by something else.
Yeah, exactly. So as I say, I was kind of alluding to that you can generally feel if it's one or the other acting up, because endometriosis, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, is more of a scarring issue, isn't it,
Yeah.
the around the organs per se, rather than polycystic ovaries, which is in fact on the organs. Because I know
Yeah.
a lot of women that have endometriosis that I've worked with and stuff as well, and it's a, I wouldn't say it's more or less pain, it's just a very different one
It
that comes
is.
with one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I found, like I said, the endometriosis generally tends to be more central, whereas the polycystic ovaries tends to be more out to the side.
Mm,
But
yeah.
like I said, everyone's different and our bodies are different. So, you know, if you are very slim and slender and very toned, you might notice a little bit more than if, you know, you've got a little bit more cushion on you. Because, you know, if you feel something that, you know, might be uncomfortable, you might put it down to trapped wind, periods, you know, possibly a slight touch of, you know, some sort of food intolerance or food
Right.
poisoning. And it can be very difficult with everything that's down there because there's such a taboo on admitting that, you know, you're not a perfect prime specimen, that, you know, you don't want to be pitied, you don't want to, you know, be
Yeah.
looked down upon, and you don't want to be thought of as any less. And I think as a woman, we're fully aware that, you know, our boobs aren't where they were, our, you know, our wrinkles are setting in, and we feel these changes, but we're not as quick to admit them and accept them. And yeah, you've just really, really, really got to be aware and in tune of your body and what's normal for you, because you will notice those changes if you look.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you know, quite rightly, as you say, there's a very big internal social medial pressure for women to look forever youthful. You know, it's there was that scandal, wasn't there, in the media a while ago, where these female news readers were being ushered off because they reached a certain age threshold, and the men are allowed to carry on till God knows when. And I think as well, because you say women are wonderfully complex. You know, they do have many different forms and faces and different stages. Men, as I said, we're very simple. As we are children, then we quote unquote grow up if we're lucky, and we tend to just cruise along, and we just reach old age, and we get wrinkles, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not seen as the taboo for a man to get older. Now, many men do feel that they feel their vitality leaving them, and but they're not in competition. Stranger with the world, they almost feel like in competition with their younger selves, and it's a very different mentality.
Yeah.
Whereas there is not a pressure on men to stay young.
No.
There's a pressure on men to grow up, but
Yeah.
it's very different because that's all happens inside. So it doesn't matter what you look like. It only
No.
matters sign of how you're acting. But for women, it's very, very centered around looks. And you know, so I'm surrounded by women all the time. I've got two little girls that I'm desperately trying to protect from all of this. I've got another half who's, you know, constantly conscious about how she looks, and you know, the women that I'm training. And I've said before, you know, this, if I can get one quote in to hopefully help everybody, it's like, your size and your weight don't make you who you are. They only determine how you are in a sense of your health. But the trouble is,
Yeah.
it's just, and there's just this real thing about saying that if you don't look flawless, and nobody is, that all came out the other day, it's all completely airbrushed. That thing, it was that fitness activewear model was seen video behind the scenes putting bum, like the old chicken fillets for your bum, down the back of her bloody leggings to make her ass look big. And it's like, it's all designed to push this narrative that you have to look a certain way, and the celebration
like a
of
Kardashian.
yeah, but the celebration of individuality that kind of came out when women were sexually liberated in the 60s, and it was just like you could just be who you were and everybody loved it. You know, the 60s and 70s where it was all just be cool, man. You know, whatever you want to be, you be you. And then all of a sudden we got really conservative and found that we had to put people in boxes again. And with the marvel that is social media and filters and lighting, and everybody's phone is a professional bloody photo shoot now, I think people are genuinely scared to. It's that whole felt cute might delete later thing, isn't it? And it drives me insane. And it's like, so you want people to like the post, otherwise you don't get validation, so you'll take another one.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, Photoshop me and give me, a more defined jawline and, less wrinkles and a clearer complexion, drop a few pounds, I don't mind. I know I don't look like that, but I won't have any problems with that
I
if
have
you
no
do.
issues not looking anything like myself.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
You always look glam to me, Bev. I will say that. You've never once, and I suppose it's going to sound really bad now, but maybe that is the problem, isn't it? Like, I've never once seen you where you didn't look quote unquote made up. I say glam, like you always look good when I see you, but then if you dig deeper into that, it's because you feel that you can't not look that way. You couldn't.
Oh, absolutely. I've got two looks. The first one is probably homeless and unwashed, and the second one is probably okay to go out in public. So I don't really have an in between. I've either got a face on me with my makeup and my eyelashes and stuff, or I look like an absolute tramp. And I think as well, part of that I've noticed with the menopause is night sweats, which then leads to broken sleep, which then leads to dark circles. Now, I could put my makeup on with a
That's my
trowel
entire
in the
look,
morning.
essentially, like broken sleep and dark circles. I've just turned it into my everyday look.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes on with the trowel and it comes off with a Karcher pressure washer. It probably takes just as long to get the makeup off as it does bloody go on. But for me, I feel if I step out into the big wide world without my makeup on, which I do when I go down the allotment, but that's because most of them are old and they can't see me anyway. But certainly if I'm venturing into town, then there is a pressure on women to make sure that you look good, because if you don't, before you know it, it's messages between each other, it's group chats, it's shaming, it's, oh, have you seen how rough she looks, oh, have you seen her without her makeup on, oh my god, doesn't she look awful? And as much as we say that we don't do that, we actually all do, and I'm just as guilty as the next person. I'm not going to say that I've never made a negative comment, because I definitely have. Don't mean it to hurt anyone. It's more of an observation. But then I think if I think like that about others, they must think like that about me. And then, when you work with the public and you're out and you're in a pub and you're all tittle-tattling and talking, that there's always going to be, you're going to find faults with each other as women, when actually what we should be doing is building each other up, not tearing each other down, because being a woman is bloody hard enough as it is. You've got the hormonal insurge of puberty, then you've got your most amazing time of your life when you're probably going to be at your fittest and healthiest, and then it just generally declines from there. And I think because we're all on these different journeys, because we're all different, really we do need to support each other as women. But saying that, I probably will never come to the gym without my makeup on.
It's interesting because, I mean, I am very lucky, I suppose, in that my other half very rarely wears makeup. She only wears it if she's really going out. She's always said because she can't be bothered. She can't be asked for the faff of it. And it's fair enough. But for me, I suppose, I notice when people aren't wearing makeup for a different reason. It's more so, it's like, because I work in mental health and I can't help but overthink everything because I am wired that way. But I often wonder, it's like, why I suppose it's one of those things, isn't it? Because makeup has become so mainstream, you notice when someone's not wearing makeup, because it's not that they look awful. It's like, oh, that's what you actually look like. And it's weird because it
Yeah.
shouldn't be at any point a shock that somebody actually looks like they look. But it is,
I think
because it's, if it's a constant thing due to an insecurity, or, you know, as you say in your case, I suppose from what we've been speaking about, a lot of it is a way to regulate your appearance, because you said it's so up and down due to all the hormonal issues and stuff, that you can almost regulate your look through makeup, so that it doesn't matter if you have more oily skin or dry skin, or if you've had sweats in the night or you've had a good night's sleep. You are able to regulate how you look through makeup.
yeah,
And the thing is, it's what, you don't change your makeup every day. Nobody does.
no,
Nobody decides they're going to have, you know, you have your set routine, you make your face the way you make your face, and you go off into the world. And it's like, this is what I feel comfortable in. And it's always fascinated me. And again, it could be ignorance. Well, it's not, because I do suffer from body dysmorphia. I was picked on a lot for my appearance. I completely understand what it's like to hate what you look like in the mirror. But from a female perspective, I suppose you're almost getting on both ends, aren't you? Because
it's
people,
a mask.
yeah, people feel insecure. As men and women should be building each other up. We should build each other up anyway. We shouldn't be in competition with
Yeah,
one another. But from an evolutionary standpoint, we are. You want to
yeah,
look good because you want a man to be attracted to you, or woman, or whatever your preference is. So if
yeah,
you come out not looking your best, you're instantly going to feel insecure, because you think, oh, I'm at a disadvantage here. Yet from another point of view, and again, as you say, like, you know, you shouldn't do it, but you can't help sometimes but make those comments, is because you think, gosh, she's looking rough today. But you have to almost point it out, because you're thinking, oh, okay, so where am I sitting in the standing now? Am I now?
yeah,
It's all subconscious. It's all one of these things that nobody really thinks about unless you spend time researching it and stuff. But guys do the same thing. If a guy turns up and he's not done his hair, or he's not wearing a nice shirt, and you go on a night out, you instantly think he's looking a bit rough. It may
yeah.
not go any more than that, but you always have that, in that brief moment where you just notice it and you can't help but not. But do you, so I suppose on the subject of makeup and not going out and stuff, did you, so it's sort of two parts, I guess. Did you find that when you reached the menopausal phase, because it wasn't straight away, did you find that the
No.
symptoms of the PCOS and endometriosis changed? Were they more intense, or did they drop off? And then did you find that you, I suppose, because of the hormonal changes that comes, that did you find it was more important to wear makeup and do more self-care bits and pieces than it was pre that era?
I've pretty much done the exact same makeup in the exact same way since about 1996.
Okay.
So to me, I could probably put this face on in pitch black without a mirror, because I'm so used to it.
Mhm.
But I think as well, with regards to the changes in your body, again, because everyone is different. And obviously, you brushed on the fact earlier that, you know, I had issues with my leg where I broke my ankle, my fibula, my tibula, everything. I was on so much pain medication that actually I wouldn't have had a clue what bloody century I was in half of the time.
Right.
And to some degree, the last 18 months or so have been very masked. So I haven't noticed the problems half as much, due to the amount of opiates that the doctors prescribed. So that was a combination of liquid morphine, tablet morphine, codeine. So any other problems or ailments that I felt, certainly with regards to period pains, endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, for the last year or so, I've not, well, year to 18 months, I've not really noticed it that much. But now my body's kind of coming out of the other side of it, other things are coming to light. So now I'm noticing it more. So now I have been back to my doctors 3 times this year so far, in the last couple of months, about it. Whether or not that's a coincidence because I've hit 40, whether or not it's because I'm not on all of the medication I was on last year, I don't know. But I think as a woman, we're very quick to dismiss something. So when you're at work and you feel that griping pain, you can't just stop and hug your hot water bottle and wrap up in a duvet. We're very much you know, stiff upper lip, crack on and carry on, you know. And I think, again, with the makeup, if you're feeling really crap on the inside, it doesn't need to show on the outside. And as women, we are told that we must carry on, we must do this, you know, we bring life into the world, we earn the money, you know. We're not women that we were 100 years ago. 100 years ago, we'd have sat at home and baked cookies for our husbands and washed their feet. Now, we don't do that. The roles have very much changed. Women have had to become more independent over the years. Our social status has changed. And I think when we do feel these cramps, again, we're quick to dismiss it. We're like, oh, take a paracetamol. It's, you know, it's a period pain, or, oh, that doesn't feel right. Maybe it's trapped wind. We'll take a Windies or some Gaviscon, or, you know, again, we're almost institutionalized to carry on regardless.
It sounds, and this may cause a little bit of heat my way, but in my it sounds like, and this kind of popped up in the last podcast I did on what is manliness and stuff, and the one I did on men's mental health. It sounds like you've been institutionalized to think like a man. You suck it up and deal with it. You're at work now. You don't get to feel pain. You don't get to feel the emotions. You've gone in, you've got a job to do. Because that's
absolutely. But we wanted equal rights, and we've been given them.
Yeah, in theory, it was like you wanted to come into the workplace. Well, this is what happens when you come into the workplace. Because that was one of the things that popped up in my research and stuff, that where the role of the man for the longest time was to be the breadwinner. And then when women entered into the workplace after the Depression and the war, it was great because it got women into the workplace, but it then switched the balance of, well, who is the breadwinner in the house anymore? And a lot of men felt that they're what made them a man, and they're tasking their job, because men are task orientated. We need jobs to do that give us titles, that give us meaning. This is where women and men differ, which is, you know, a lot of stuff I brought up.
It's demasculating, really, taking away their role.
It was, and the reason for that is that, as I said in the podcast that went out the other day, the trouble is men in recent times have been told that manliness is the things that you own, the title that you have, etc., etc. Whereas way back when, men and women were actually judged on the values of their internal values. Are you the best husband to your wife? Are you the best father to your son? Are you the best son to your father, etc., etc.? And then all of a sudden, when money became more of a thing, and then obviously the trouble is, if you put manliness or womanliness, as it works in both ways, to an attribute, a job, a physical thing you have, that can change at any point. Manliness at one stage was being the warrior, but then there wasn't any wars to fight. So how do you be a man? Doesn't work. The men was then the breadwinner. Well, women went to work. Well, how do I be a man now? And then the trouble was, on the flip side, women got into the working world, but that's what men were doing. So you've got to integrate in pretty damn quick, and it's shit. It's bloody horrible having to then go, you know, it's that time of the month. Well, I can stay home all day and deal with that because I know that the man is out doing the work. Now it's like, shit, I've got a job to go and do. As you say, I can't sit here with a blanket on and take a day. It's getting better where you can now, especially with remote working and stuff like that, and workplaces are a little bit more understanding. But yeah, it was almost the best thing about being a stay-at-home mum was that if you had a bad day, you could kind of have a bad day, but you were reliant on your man, and you hope that you had a good one, which is my infinite favorite thing about how women turn around, and like younger women now say, oh, I would love to have grown up in the 50s, you know, it's all so romantic. It was also, you came home and if dinner wasn't ready, you get a slap. So
you were a subservient wife.
it wasn't all the glam, you know, it wasn't all Gene Kelly and all that stuff and Singing in the Rain. It was, where's my bloody dinner? You should have that shit sorted. But yeah, it's just interesting from your point of view, just solely from what you said. It sounds like that you've been institutionalized to think more like a man because you're in the workplace now. So you know, your boss doesn't care that you haven't, your boss, your customers, the company don't care that your insides are actively trying to fight themselves and escape your body. They simply,
can you shut my door, please?
They simply just expect you to do the job.
Yeah.
So then you as a woman and as a man as well, which is I think why men milk man flu a bit, because it's the only time they get to really be ill. Because you know, if you broke your leg, you'd still be expected, like, did you die? No, well, get your ass back into work then. But if you can almost say that you can't breathe and got some sniffles, it's almost like your day off, as it were. Women have got to mask all that but that's what it's become. But the interesting thing about yourself, what you're saying as well, I mean, I remember when you first came into the gym to do your rehab, and I physically had to get you on my back out of your wheelchair and give you a piggyback up the stairs.
Up 2 flights of stairs.
Yeah, to get you 3 flights of stairs, to get you into the massage room, to get it all sorted. And then you said that because you weren't happy with the amount of opiates they were putting you on, you were trying to use them as little as possible. So I think you through self-discipline actually really ramped up your pain tolerance. I mean, you've always been good with pain anyway.
I stopped it all dead, everything.
But you cut all the medication, but you just, through sheer fortitude, were just like, no, I'm not going to let this get. And as you say, that then makes it very difficult to decide what pain's what, because you're just trying to suppress all of it. Just anything I'm feeling, no, it's not happening. I'll take the painkillers before bed if I really need to, but I'm not dealing with it in the daytime. So yeah, I can quite well imagine that there was that moment where it was hard to differentiate between what was going on, because you just kind of figured, like, if I don't feel anything, I can survive. Because the other thing, well, for you in that moment as well, sort of veering slightly off track, was you were told it was 18 months for recovery. And obviously, once I explained that that was just by their criteria, not by yours, you were very worried about not getting back into work and doing something. That was driving you insane, being stuck where it was. So I suppose,
they said
have there been
12 to 18 months.
Yeah. And have there been times as well where, so you brought it up a couple of times, and it's interesting to reiterate, women are more prone to negative emotions than men, which is why women are very good at picking up if their friends aren't very well. They're good at picking up if kids aren't doing too well. And the environment's changed. Men aren't wired that way, because traditionally through evolution, our jobs are far more dangerous. We can't be worrying about all the tiny little things. There's just something very big in front of us we have to deal with. So do you find it's a bit of a catch-22 because you're so prone to negative, or picking up on negative emotions? Do you feel that you need to suppress that sometimes before you overthink things? So this might be something that women are going through now that maybe don't know they have PCOS or endometriosis, but because they feel that they know something's not right, but they don't want to acknowledge it because they notice a lot of things that aren't right. Do you think that could possibly be an issue as well?
Absolutely. I think for women, it is like fear of the unknown. And it's like, if you don't know, it can't hurt you. And I think because everyone's experience can be so different, it's not easy to know whether or not there is a change. Some changes will be so significant that you will notice them. So if your monthly cycle is longer, or it's heavier, or it's more prominent, then that's something that you will notice. But when it's going on inside you, those changes could be mild. And I mean, especially like with cervical cancer, that's not something that you feel. That's you don't feel that at all. You know, that there's not really any major side effects that would lead you to believe that, you know, there is a problem. So for example, if you break your nose and it bleeds, you can see that. Whereas what's going on in the inside, it's not as easy to pick up on it at all. And because, you know, you might think that you know, you're just feeling a bit uncomfortable, or you've eaten too much, or you've not eaten enough, or your hormones are, you know, either ramping up the, you know, not the best few days, or they're, you know, starting to slow down from over those few days. It's again, we dismiss everything because we need to carry on, because as women, we wanted to vote, we wanted to work, we wanted equal rights. And although our bodies are very different to men, because we wanted these things, we jolly well have to just work through it. And like you said, for men and women, it is very different. So men don't have that monthly inconvenience. They don't have the you know, the real kind of gearing up to it in puberty with, you know, sore, tender boobs and things. Whereas women have to almost juggle the work-life balance. And be almost like an alpha female, that yes, we can work, yes, we can get through it, yes, we can do it. But actually, sometimes our bodies are saying to us, no, we
No,
can't.
you can't.
We need a bit of help. That could
Yeah.
be emotional help, it could be pain relief help, it could be vitamin supplement because your body is overproducing something or not producing enough. I mean, I've just been prescribed folic acid. Now, I honestly thought folic acid was only ever given to pregnant women.
Right.
And when the doctor gave it to me, I laughed at him and I said, I'm not pregnant. I said, why do I need that? So then he just went off on a tangent. And the minute he started talking medical terms, my brain just went, "Shh." And I sat there until he finished and I went, okay, thanks. Off I went. I got my prescription and I got home and I thought, what the bloody hell did he say? So again, went on to Google, folic acid, what's it used for? Again, the first few things on the internet will say pregnancy, but then it will go on about hormones as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on folic acid.
Yeah. As you say, it was an interesting one because it's almost, I suppose not even almost, you have to have a work-life balance
Yeah.
that contradicts a biological hormone balance that throws you out of whack every month. And the other thing is, and this is, again, and I love talking to you because you are just very much to say it how it is. This is the problem with the quality of outcome, because it doesn't exist. And if ever there was an example, this is it. Equality of opportunity, absolutely. You should have been able to vote. You should be able to go to work. I have two little girls who I will empower to the absolute end of me to get equal pay, but at the same time, you don't have equality of outcome because you have to battle something I don't.
Yeah,
I can go to work day in, day out, every single day of my working life, and it'd be pretty much the same unless an outside influence changes it. Once every 28 days, you are dancing with the devil, essentially, to see what's going to happen. What, it could be a great week. It could be, I mean, I've been very lucky that my partner and my previous partner had not very hormonal spouts. Their periods didn't last very long and it was all very regulated. Yet, as I say, living with my mother, was the polar opposite, I am very much aware, I'm not naive to the fact that, as you say in your case, that week is wild and you've got to keep a lid on it.
Yeah, it's like rolling the dice and spinning a plate, and like you said, dancing with the devil. You might be really good that one day you just want to eat and you want cake and you want sugar, and then the next day you literally would want to skin the fur off kittens. And you don't know how you're going to wake up each day, and it's all well and good saying, oh, just get on with it, but you don't know what hormonal changes and imbalances are going on and how that's going to affect your day. And like I said, something so little and so trivial like the Marmite not being available in the cupboard absolutely sent me off on a raging tangent. And, I mean, I probably could have taken on, 25, 30 men with the rage that I had and, fought for Marmite. But again, there might be other days where I just want to be left alone, where I'm tired and where I'll have a duvet day and stay in bed.
And this is, there'll be a lot of guys / girls, for instance, that may listen to this scenario, shall we say, and going, oh yeah, but I get like that sometimes. But the difference is that if you don't have, more so for men, again, I'm not telling women how to think on this one because I can't. But from the guy's perspective, it's like, oh yeah, my missus gets a bit aggy as well. It's a little bit different than that. When you have these other conditions, it's not a regulated, once a month, it's going to be I should stay out of her way kind of thing. It's this could happen tomorrow just because it feels like it. This isn't going to turn up on you're not going to mark this off on the calendar with a big red X for 7 days, mate, and happy days, all right, I'll come back in a week. This is it's been 1 day off and you're back on again, straight in. Whoa, I thought you came off. Well, clearly not, because I mean, as I said, my mum's used to be 3 weeks in a row and she was very volatile, dangerously volatile. She'd get a week off and then bang, another 3-4 week stint. So, you know, me and my brother sometimes were just told by my dad, it's that time, it's pretty bad, just try and stay out of the way. I'll do what I can for you, but you've been warned. And we just had to skirt around it and deal with it. You know, it wasn't mum's fault. It's just unfortunately that she had the run that she had. And there's plenty of women, and as I suppose from your side of you, that, as you said before, there's that guilt and there's that shame almost that you can't keep control of it. But in these situations, you just can't. It's physically impossible and biologically impossible to keep any kind of lid on this eruption that's waiting to happen. You know, the volcano blows when it blows, and it's the same in this situation.
And I think as well, like, certainly if you're in a relationship and you've got a partner, you know, ideally when you're in a relationship, you want to be the best version of yourself that you can be for your partner. You know, you want to have that intimate side as well. So, you know, not everyone is comfortable being intimate, you know, at those particular times. You know, some do, some don't, you know, and this is conversations that, you know, you have with your friends all the time. And, you know, some people have a laugh and a giggle about it. But then as a woman, you want to keep hold of your man. So you almost feel guilty that you're denying him his conjugal rights. And then in your mind, because your hormones are everywhere, you're thinking, well, if I can't give him what he wants, what if he goes somewhere else and gets it, you know? And then it could be something as simple as, you know, he's gone to the shop and he's bumped into a mate and he's having a 10-minute chat outside outside the corner shop. But in your mind, you're thinking, well, he's been gone 20 minutes. What's he been doing? Why hasn't he come back? And I think as well, because women generally do tend to overthink things. And when we're in that hormonal imbalance, it can really affect relationships.
Yeah.
And, you know, men might make a joke of it and go, oh, well, you know, there's more than one way, or you know, oh, you know, just chuck us some chocolate or something. I think they can be a little bit insensitive to our needs sometimes, but I think we're a little bit oversensitive and think more into it, that actually I don't think they're going to be too fussed if they're denied, you know, intimacy for a few days.
Yeah, it's
but
that
we feel failures as women because we can't do that or won't.
It's that prone to negative emotions under a microscope, because you say your hormones cause you to race. Guys, on the most part, aren't well versed unless they've had to live through it.
Yeah.
The majority of guys are pretty good, and if it's explained, they'll understand it. And you say, but as you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It doesn't matter how good your man is, if you are not comfortable and you're not processing things right, it doesn't matter how good a man you've got, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because you will push them away, because you overthink, because you feel that you can't provide. He may be okay with it, or he may suggest, well, I don't mind if we do it anyway, but you don't want to do it because you've got to feel sexy and in the mood. You know, there's a lot of sex is as much up in the mind as it is in the body. It's not just a case of take your clothes off and off you go. So you've got to feel that you want to do it. And there's and the trouble is that, I mean, personally, I know all the guys that I hang around with are very much in the same boat. They do want a connection with the person they're with. It isn't just about getting some and stuff. And, you know, we laugh about it and going, oh, what's your designated day? And you go, oh, well, it happens to be this day. Oh, really? Mine's a Friday. But it's not that's what it's about. It's you accept it because it's everything else that's involved. But as you say, if you're overthinking something, and as you say, you could have the best man or best woman in the world, and if your body's betraying that thought process, it does become nigh on impossible. And it doesn't matter how patient that person is, you will keep driving and pushing until you get the answer that you feel you want, which is completely unfair on either end, but it's nobody's fault. And that's the hardest part, is that it is nobody's fault. It's just this coin toss that you're going to get on the day, that you almost hope that he doesn't bump into somebody, because you can feel like you're not gonna be able to keep a lid on it. Or some days you think, yeah, fucking spend 10 minutes because I can't bear the sight of you. I hope you take bloody 12 hours to go down the shop.
Don't come back too soon.
Yeah.
Then I think also as well, I think as women, we seem to generally be embarrassed, you know, that we have this regular cycle once a month or one, you know, I mean, and let's be honest, I mean, although we call them monthlies, they can rock up anywhere between 17 and 35 days.
Yeah.
So again, every woman is different. But it's almost like an embarrassment to say, I'm on my period. It's like something that we should be ashamed of. But then it's not anything that we ask for. As you know, as a newborn, we didn't say, please grace us with this, you know, amazing experience every month, or how. It's, we don't have a choice in that. And I think as well, like as women, obviously we want to be fresh, we want to shower, we need to make sure we've got those products. And I think it's massively unfair that we have to pay for them as well.
No,
So like,
it's
as a
outrageous.
woman,
Like the fact that you have to pay tax on sanitary products is
oh, the tampon tax, yeah.
I don't understand it, because it makes no sense either end. And I joke with my other half about this, because I'm the one that goes and buys them all. She always sends me around the shop to get them. Like I've been dyeing my other half's hair, buying her tampons for her and everything since we got together. It really doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And I just said, who decided that tampons and sanitary products were a luxury item? I never once met a man that was excited that his other half was now at that point of her cycle, because it never goes well for anybody. Like, I don't know who made that law, but they need a real big punch in the back of the head, because it's like it for no gender at any point was the period the pinnacle of luxury. It's not like you buy them as an accessory and hang them from your ears. It's like it's literally designed to allow a female to continue with her day while she menstruates. That's what they're designed for. They're actually almost an essential work item, if you think about it, because you know, if you're not working, you could just stay at home.
You can't go out without them.
No, you could stay at home and do your thing. Power to you. But if you want to work and function and socialize, you need this product. It's like, it's a necessity.
It is, absolutely.
It baffles me that, you know, you have to pay the amount you have to pay for them, and then they put tax on it as well. It's like, how? No, fair enough. If it seems funny, it's like, it even should be a case of like, if I'm a guy buying them, all right, I'll pay for them. But if a woman comes in, there should just be somewhere that they can go to get them, like a little
goodie bag in the toilets. Like, never mind the lipstick and the hairspray, we want sanitary items.
But I mean, it's almost like you can pay for an NHS to free to the point of use. I would have no issue at all of part of my tax money going into the fact that I know that my two little girls could walk in at any moment into a shop and just grab what they need.
Yeah.
And go. I mean, obviously they would say, well, you pay for them anyway. It's like, well, it's not the point, because there's plenty of women and girls out there that feel embarrassed to go get them if they're in a single parent family and the mum either isn't very clued up, because sometimes that happens despite having them themselves, or if they're in a single parent family with a dad who has no clue what's going on. You know, it could be the fact that the dad's really trying but doesn't understand anything about it, and this poor girl's got to go find them herself, and she doesn't realize how much they cost. And if you're on a low income family, like, the last thing you should really be having to pay for is fucking sanitary products. It's like,
yeah. And even as a 40-year-old woman, if I have to go and get them from the shop, if like, I mean, obviously self-serve and self-scan things are, you know, far more popular, but years ago those facilities weren't there. So as a woman, sometimes you'd find yourself walking up and down the aisles waiting for a female cashier to become free, because we are embarrassed that this is happening to us every bloody month. Now, you don't really want to look like a complete banana and buy out the whole entire shelf to keep you from that embarrassment for a year's supply. But again,
it crosses your mind, doesn't it? You really do think, maybe if I just overbuy them, I don't have to come back for a bit.
Yeah, and I think for men and women, like, certainly men are quite proud of their man bits, you know, and they have been known to, you know, flash them and share them and, you know, this is this is my manliness.
You
Whereas
know what the
for a
funniest thing is?
woman,
I don't understand that unless somebody asks you to see it. Keep it in your because they're not pretty parts. Ladies have pretty parts, which is why men put their things inside lady parts, because nobody needs to see it. You don't show it. It goes into the lovely
no.
thing and you keep it in there. That's where you keep it. I don't understand that whole need to expose oneself and go, haha, look at what I have. Dude, didn't look pretty before you pulled it out. Sure as shit doesn't look pretty now.
But again, women are almost institutionalized in believing that our bits should be a certain way, a certain size, that they should, and it's almost like everything to do with the woman parts is an area of shame. So we're shamed if we're not groomed. We're shamed if we groom too much. We're shamed if we expose it. That they're just
Do you find it's more
it's a
women that do the
source of
shaming?
shame.
Do you find it's women that do more of the shaming or men?
I'd say it's a mix.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly. I mean, now you have the option to have a designer one because we believe that they should look a certain way, and most people's if you
As
line them
as a
all up,
man
they're
who
going to
was
be
never
very
overly
different.
popular with women, I was just happy to see one. I didn't really care what it looked like when it came out. I was just so happy that I hadn't messed things up enough that I got to see one. I was like, oh, hooray. I was like,
Well,
the fact that what it looked like was completely irrelevant at that point. I was like, oh my God, you've deemed me worthy.
I think one good thing is that there is this absolutely batshit crazy program on TV called Naked
It's
Attraction.
fascinating, isn't it? It's
It
just
is,
so
yeah,
beyond. Me
but
and my other half
I
are
think it's
fixated with it. We can't help
yeah,
ourselves. And it's like, it's so weird, isn't it? Because that first bit that comes up, you're literally just asking somebody to make an assessment on someone's entire being based on their
based
private
on their
parts.
genitals,
Men
yeah.
or women. The things with men is men feel in contest with each other for size because for us it is the epitome of who you are. Like if you look at this, there was a guy on Naked Attraction that came out the other day, and I swear to God he was swinging a hammer between his legs, and I literally went to Cat, no wonder those two don't know where to look. I don't know where to look. I'm impressed right now. Jesus, like,
Yeah,
but you do, everybody, because it's an internal thing, because if it looks better than yours, you assume that that person's going to get a better chance with a mate than you are. That's the old evolutionary state of it. So it doesn't matter whether it's a vagina, whether it's your boobs, whether it's your bum, whether it's your penis, whether it's your testicles, whether it's how big a broader shoulder. Guys get massively funny about broad shoulders as well. Like if you're and beards are a massive thing as well for guys. I've had people actively come up and like get funny with me because my beard was darker than theirs. They thought I dyed it and then got annoyed that I had a naturally dark, thick beard because he couldn't grow one. We're
tell him
so
to have the menopause, and he'll have one within 3 weeks.
yeah, that's what you need.
Yeah,
But it's so funny how that's why I asked, because I didn't know whether you'd personally or in general it's been in from my point of view and from the people that I hang around with, because again, if I'm very much that guy, if you're going to be a knob, I don't want to be your friend. None of us have ever really worried about what the lady parts look like. We have a preference, but it was never something we'd enforce. If you want to shave, that's your prerogative. It's like I'm not going to kick up a fuss if it's not how I would prefer it, but it is what it is. But I think there's been a real thing, as you say, at the moment to look a certain way. Like all those funny adverts like on ASOS and stuff where women are wearing these micro bikinis and all these real women are going, I don't know where she puts her vagina, but it sure as shit isn't in that bikini, because there's no way I'd fold it all in there. And I'm thinking when I see some of these shorts that guys wear, I'm like, there's no way I can do that. I'd get arrested if I wore those shirts. There's those shorts.
camel toe and moose tooth.
Yeah, you just think, I mean, again, being a lifeguard was bad enough. When you're wearing these short shorts, you're thinking, oh God, I hope nobody mildly attractive comes in, because I'm literally going to get arrested if something happens here. It's like just some of it's just farcical, but you look at all these and they're all airbrushed. It's all been cleaned out and made to look as tiny as possible. And you think, even I've looked at some of the, I'm thinking, in my time as a man, I have never seen any female parts that look like that. I don't even think that's possible for it to look like that. Like, why on earth would you make that the thing to aspire to? Because it's almost, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah. I think as well, and like, because I think there was a really powerful storyline many years ago on Sex in the City, where Samantha, who wasn't blessed in the bosom department, decided that she wanted to keep up with the younger ladies and she wanted to have, you know, new false boobs. And she went to see a specialist and a surgeon to have, you know, breast implants. And yeah, they found out that she had breast cancer. And you know, she
Yes, I
was
remember
sure that
that.
she didn't have enough boobs to have breast cancer. But
Mm,
again, it just goes to show that sometimes our quest for vanity will absolutely overlook any forms of rationalization when it comes to admitting there could be a problem. I mean, I'm sure if you asked all the ladies that you work with, honestly, how many of them have checked their boobs in the last 12 months? You might get 50% that say, I have, but I bet out of that 50%, probably only 5-10% of them actually have.
mm. Yeah, it's a scary statistic. We will wrap up on that because otherwise me and
Yeah.
Bev can go on forever and ever and ever. If you have any questions for myself or Bev, because I will pass them on, please feel
Yeah, go
free
for it.
to lay them on us. I hope this has helped open your eyes a little bit into what it's like, guys to be a woman and women to be a woman that's a real woman, not one that you
Yeah.
hear talking about a perfect lifestyle. Not that you know, Bev is not perfect, but you know, from that.
I'm definitely not.
I'm trying to big you up here, Bev. Come on, play the game.
I am,
She
yeah.
is. She bloody well is.
Yeah.
But yeah, please, again, if there's a few things we can take away from this, go get your checks, check yourself. Don't be afraid to question, ask for multiple answers if you still don't get it, and know that, you know, as much as it's abnormal, you are a normal woman. You are as much as a woman as anybody else. There's just variations in all of us, and the same for guys as well. And I'll probably get some guys in as well talking about different bits and pieces later on. But I
And
hope this has
ask your
helped.
partner to check for differences.
Yeah, yeah.
Because your partner probably touches your boobies more than you do, and you probably have a grope of his bits, maybe more than he does. So it's
If
about
not, turn it
having
into
the
something that you do. Check each other out. Because to be fair,
proper feel.
well, yeah, but also, I suppose on that note, you can look at it objectively because you'll purposefully miss things because you don't want to know the answer. Whereas the person who you love or loves you very much will want you to be healthy and get it looked at. So feel each other up.
Absolutely.
Not only does it make you feel good, but you might prolong the time you have with one another by finding something that maybe shouldn't be there. So take care, everybody.
Prevention is better than cure.
Exactly. Words
There
to
we
end it
go.
by. Take care, everybody, and we'll speak to you soon.
Take